I came to a personal realization that I think this sort of like way of thinking has been a constant as I've been trying to, grow my career of always keeping my eyes out. How am I able to grow within this role? Marketing now in the sense of working for a tech startup also means it's not just about, the outdoor communication. It's also how do we communicate to our potential customers? How do we use marketing as a sales tool? When the team is so small, you can't separate yourself from the growth discussions and, where's the company at and where do we need to go? And you are an integral part of that. Of that, exactly. Everything that you do on a daily is directly contributing to growth. The co-founders we were practically age mates, right? Yeah. And so that is, I think, actually the very first time I had the thought of, perhaps I could also do something.
Never forget to bet on yourself.
Yeah,
is what I always say.
Absolutely.
Especially if you work in the work environment.
Exactly.
Find something that is for you and keep betting on yourself as many times as possible. Hello everyone and welcome to the first ever episode of the After Hours in collaboration with Tanqueray. This is going to be a special 10-part series that we're going to be having in the next couple of months. Today we have a very special guest, Shiro Njoroge, who is going to be joining us. But before that, what also makes this special is that we are in this lovely location, Artcaffe Gastro Bar, and they have blessed us with the best Tanqueray cocktail that they have on their menu, and that is the Gastro Collins. Now, the Gastro Collins is made of the premium Tanqueray Royale alongside the tonic. That being said, we will get into the episode. Thank you so much for coming on the After Hours and for being our first guest.
No, I'm excited. Thank you so much.
I'm excited to have you on here and to have the really raw conversations that need to be had. Before we get any further, please introduce yourself to our audience.
My name is Shiro Njoroge. I'm co-founder of Mosmos and I head growth at Mosmos, and I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to have conversations about tech, which is my passion, and how to build a successful startup in Africa.
I love that. I love that. We're going to get a bit into your story right after I remind people that responsible drinking is something that should be at the forefront of your mind. So make sure as you're having your gin and tonic or any kind of Tanqueray at home or any drink of your choice, make sure that you're doing it responsibly. Drink some water, don't drink and drive. And of course, this festive season is very delicate. So please be sure to be safe and have an amazing time safely. Okay, so Shiro, please tell us where your story began. Did you always know you had an interest in tech? I know we already had a bit of a conversation and you expressed that this was a bit far off your peripheral, but I want to know about your journey. So let us know when it began.
Absolutely. No, to answer the question, I didn't even always know about tech as far as, my tech, understanding went as far as social media as we're growing up. And so I sort of stumbled into the tech space, but just a bit of a background. I actually studied law. I've made a lot of transitions or pivoting, even within my, not so long career so far. So, law is my background. But, upon finishing my degree, I already knew that my interest lied elsewhere. And so straight out of uni, got my first job in marketing. I was really looking for...
How did you get your first job in marketing if you studied law?
I was looking for something that, first I was out of uni, so I was desperate for a job. So, anything goes. Anything goes. So, so I had an interest in marketing. I mean, this had probably something to do with my extracurricular activities while I was in uni, where I was doing a bit of what I know now as digital marketing, but then it had no name. I'm not that old, by the way, but then it had no name.
Do you wanna show it, tell it to our crowd?
And so then right out of uni, through the small network that I'd built, then I started working at a small marketing agency. Essentially, those are the formative career years. Yes. I wasn't really looking at it as this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Yes. I was looking for something that is, engaging, somewhere I can grow, somewhere that earns me a little bit of money and some independence right after uni. And so started working within marketing.
Yes.
digital marketing, which I enjoyed actually. You know, it was very dynamic. You know, one of the sort of, you know, weak points for me with law is that I found it very rigid. There was only one way to grow. It could also be a factor of how, you know, the law degree was sold to us when we were in uni. You know, you can only do conveyancing and you know, a few other, you know, verticals. So might have been a product of that. So then, as started working in marketing, then quickly moved to a bigger marketing agency once I established that this is actually something I would like to do for a couple of years. Again, you know, still early 20s, not really looking at the 10-year plan. It's more like, what's this year's plan? And then, you know, moved to a bigger marketing agency. And that really helped me grow within marketing, in digital marketing. I worked a bit at Ogilvy, and was my first, I would say, experience working in proper, you know, corporate structure, you know, large teams, departments, and you know, that also was very integral in helping me, you know, understand how to, you know, work with teams, work on various projects. And I really I enjoyed it. I think that was very much a building or a stepping stone.
I think nothing is, sorry to, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I think nothing is ever in vain, right? I think
absolutely not.
As long as you're doing something is what I always say.
Exactly.
Like, okay, you're figuring it out, you may have not figured it out, but you're doing something. Eventually what you thought was just filling time is going to be very relevant.
It's valuable, exactly. Absolutely. I mean, and as much as I don't practice my law degree, you still gain skills, right? You critical thinking, etc. So nothing's ever in vain. As long as you're productive, as long as you're willing to learn, you keep your eyes open. You know, it's all valuable. So then did about a year and a few months at Ogilvy. But while I was there, I came to a personal realization that I think this sort of like way of thinking has been a constant as I've been trying to, you know, grow my career, of always keeping my eyes out. How am I able to grow within this role? And I felt, you know, the path to growth was very slow. I don't know why I was in such a rush. To, you know, grow. Maybe perhaps, you know, gaining a lot of experience.
That you were in a rush?
No, I don't think so. But then every time, you know, within almost say 2.5 years, I'd changed jobs twice, and of course, my parents' first concern is, you know, why are you moving so quickly?
It's not even law.
Exactly, it's not even law, and even that you've left. You've already left twice. What's the problem? And then of course, you know, you always have to, you know, a rolling stone gathers no more. So, you know, wouldn't you rather stay? I mean, these are different schools of thought, and they both have value. You know, you could stay and put in the time and the work, and then of course you grow.
Up the ladder.
Exactly, going up the ladder. But I don't know why I was in such a rush. But I mean, I think always good to be curious. Always good to, you know, keep looking. So that is around that time when I was looking to transition out of Ogilvy is when I sort of stumbled into tech. I was looking to now, with the marketing skills that I gathered, how can I go in-house is what we used to call it in, you know, agency marketing terms. How can I go in-house? Whereas rather than, you know, serving multiple clients, I would like to provide value for one client and sort of like build it, you know, holistically, even from the ground up. And then around that time is when I was introduced to, I think I started asking questions, and at the time, Turaco was a
I know about
very
Turaco.
early, was very in its very early stages, and you know, they were looking to grow, you know, establish a marketing team, and essentially sort of build a team. And that is exactly, you know, sometimes it's a matter of, you know, time and place. So I interviewed for that and I got it, but I didn't realize that I was now transitioning to, you know, the tech space as we know it now. For me, it was just like, okay, they're looking for, you know, a marketing lead. And I was also used to doing marketing very differently, which is also why I wanted to change. Exactly. Which was a very different style of working when you're working in agency. very big clients, which means, out of home advertising, billboards, etc. But I was also looking to use my skills in-house with a team with, perhaps, a smaller budget. What can we do with what we have? And so that was my introduction to the tech space.
I love that. It was just
exactly.
No, and I love that, but I think it was also, I believe strongly in things happening the way that they happen because it's supposed to happen. Because that small introduction is what brought you to now be a co-founder of Mosmos, which we're going to get a bit into. If I was just going to insert myself slightly into your story, I relate so much because I did communications. On the contrary, I did communications and marketing.
Yeah.
So naturally, most of the times when you're having conversations with my classmates at that time, the goal was to be in some sort of agency.
Yeah.
But for me, my goal was always different. I didn't want to be in agency because all you would hear in agency are horror stories. I mean, no judgment if you're in agency or if that's what you're trying to do. But there's two things. There's a lot of structure.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, complaints from the people that I know. But that is what I was initially interested in. But I think I know what happened is I started this podcast. I had a lifestyle podcast at that time. And so I was approached for an influencing gig, but then I pitched myself for marketing. But it was the best thing that happened to me because that was my introduction into tech, into Honeycore, the company that I work for now. It was just me, staki kukua. I don't want to be an agency. What's the alternative? And also, I wanted to ask you, based on what you said previously, before we get into the next point, you mentioned that you don't know why you were pushed towards careers that were like you were jumping around here and then didn't necessarily want to go to law.
Yeah.
I have a feeling it has something to do with the people you were interacting with every day. I mean, you were in law school, so I'm assuming, why most of your friends in law, or what? Like, was it the people interaction that affected?
Yes, absolutely. Very, very, very interesting. Yeah, and I think you're definitely right. Yes, so I studied law, but I was also part of a student organization called AIESEC, where we go, and that was, the digital marketing that we used to do, sort of like marketing programs to students abroad, etc. And so that built most of my network. I spent a lot of time, supporting and volunteering for some of these projects. And so a lot of my network, and I think that sort of very early exposure to you can do more. There's a different way of approaching work. There's skills that you can grow and accumulate that are not just your textbook version of I'm studying law and therefore I will follow this already predetermined steps for me. So I think your network, I won't say network, because at that time we were not really looking at it as network. It's more, the people you surround. Yeah, exactly.
But can tell you,
sorry. And also diversity, right?
And
so
diversity.
within that student organization, there was students from journalism, there was law, there was architecture. It was University of Nairobi, so also got to interact with different schools of thought. So you're absolutely right. Absolutely, that curiosity started from then.
I would say that, and it just takes one thing that you're doing out of your list of activities to make you feel. And I think that is a common theme in people who work in the tech space. There's a certain sense of freedom and diversity and culture comparatively to the traditional industries, or
absolutely.
It's different because you kind of fall in love with that.
Exactly.
Zeal, and so you're looking for more opportunities to feed that in you. So I love that. Anyway, digressing, you can go ahead and so now you've done the AIESEC thing, you've done social media. Now you're pivoting, you're at Turaco. What happens next?
Yes, so that was jumping, into the deep end feet first, and you can't swim.
Were you entering as the only marketing person?
Yes. I was entering as the only marketing hire. It was my first sort of taste of, work with what you've got. I was used to working with like, you know, huge budgets and it's a completely different style of marketing.
Execute, but be as frugal as possible.
As frugal as possible, so you have to be creative. And also marketing, and which is also why I was really looking for a change, is, you know, marketing now in the sense of working for a tech startup also means it's not just about, you know, the outdoor communication. It's also how do we communicate to our potential customers? How do we use marketing as a sales tool, right? It's not just marketing for marketing's sake. Is, you know, for the budget that we're spending, what do we get in return?
Absolutely.
And that skill, you know, critical skill of, because the common sort of like nuance or stereotype is marketing is a taking tool. In any company budget, marketing is the one who spends and you never see anything in return, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to downsizing, marketing is the first to go, because it's a spend, it's spent, right? And so sort of like that way of thinking of, you know, how do we use marketing as a sales tool for every amount that we spend? What do we get in return? Is there a way to quantify it?
I love that.
Was very, you know, it's critical,
It's
and
different.
also it's different and critical for also the times that we're living in now.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Everything is sales.
Just to get into a
Everything is
bit
sales.
of marketing conversation, I relate fully, because same school of thought, right?
Yeah.
That's, you know, it's a startup, maybe you have funding, but you're being very careful,
Yeah.
and you want to be working with the founder, not just saying, hey, let's spend 1 million on influencers.
Yeah, why?
But influencers are almost like a one-and-off spend sometimes.
Exactly.
You'd rather, okay, can we do in-app ads? Can we do this? Can we do
exactly.
that? Which is different from what you're taught,
Yeah.
especially as someone who did communications or worked in agency, for example.
Exactly.
Different. So you need
different
that,
ball game.
You need a different kind of thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need to use it as a tool to provide value, you know, to the company and growth trajectory.
Yes.
And so that was also a transition into growth, because I stopped looking at marketing as marketing and marketing as a growth tool. And so, you know, how do we increase our customer base, etc. And so jumping in, you know, feet first, I'm learning about tech, I'm learning about microinsurance, I'm learning about, you know, I had no idea about this whole other world, and this is the type of work. But you know, I think, you know, we did great. Turaco is a wildly successful company now, and I'm glad to have been a part of their story. A lot of learnings, a lot of introduction to everything I know right now as the tech world, you know, venture capital funding. I mean, it was a completely new world, right?
I feel like you're an older version of me. What happens next?
Let me
know.
Let me shake my globe and I'll tell you what's in your future.
Okay.
So, and also, you know, looking back, an intro to how to build a business. Whereas I wasn't looking at it in that way. Of course, at the time, I definitely, I mean, I was still quite young and looking at myself as an employee. But because when the team is so small, you can't separate yourself from the growth discussions and, you know, where's the company at and where do we need to go? And you are an integral part of that. Exactly. Everything that you do on a daily is directly contributing to growth, which was very unlike my previous work experience, where I was basically a cog in a very big wheel, a very well, you know, oiled, well budgeted,
Just like you're just
wheel.
like
Exactly, which is okay, of course, and it's also what led me to, you know, my next step. There was, of course, a lot of value to be drawn there, but that was also an introduction to, you know, how do you build a business? How do businesses grow? How do, you know, what is this tech world? What's the tech space? And also an introduction to actually solving a need, you know, solving a pressing need, and through our solution, you know, we're making impact. You know, we're making impact, but we're also not just impact driven. We are making money, and if we're not making money right now, there's a growth to, there's a path to profitability, and it's sort of all of that. You know, in hindsight now, I started learning then, but very, you know, very, very interesting. Very
interesting for you to say that. I just have one question with regards to what you're saying. That I think a lot of people who work in the startup space or just who have their first job, they're usually, you know, you're a combination of the 5 people around you. You're working with these people 24/7. I feel like everybody in the team, or most people in the team, sort of start getting an itch to have an entrepreneurial energy
absolutely
towards themselves.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I guess we might get into this when we get into what you're doing now at Mosmos, but that feeling of, okay, I'm learning all this, and then now you want to make that transition, or like you're fearful because, you know, like you said, it's structured, but it's chaotic structure.
It's chaotic, yeah. It's chaotic
structure.
You know, it's a thought out mess.
It's a thought out
essentially.
Mess. So I'm really curious to know about thoughts and the emotions and everything that you were experiencing at that time you decided to make a shift from Turaco, because I think everybody, like I said, everybody in the team or most people in the team start having that push, like maybe I can do something myself. Maybe this is not too bad. Maybe I like this, you know, I want to keep building, I want to keep contributing. How do you make that next step? And what are some of the things you're expected to experience as you think and decide to make that next step? Asking for me too. I would like to ask you questions as well, right? Go ahead.
Has that been your, has that also, I'm curious if that's also been your experience of, you know, starting to work and then getting the itch? Or is it something that you always had? You know, there's always sort of been a thought in your mind of, I want to build. Is one a consequence of the other? Or because I think there's people who are also naturally...
Thanks for asking me. Nobody ever asked me. Out of 40 episodes I've published on this channel,
no one's asking you anything.
No one's asked me about me. But I'm so happy that you've asked me that question. Okay. I think in some ways, yes. I wouldn't say I always knew I wanted to be in like a founder or an entrepreneur. In fact, I've shied away from that terminology for a very long time. But I always had a push for leadership.
Okay.
Whether in a good context or bad context, and not bad in whatever way you're thinking, bad in that I've been high school guys are saying, the streets are saying in high school, I was inciting guys to maybe go home instead of staying in school to study an extra 2 days, you know? So I've always kind of wanted to be in that position of, hey guys, this is what we're doing.
Can influence change
just
somehow.
Like an influence sort of change thing. And so that has always been there.
Okay.
But when I joined Honeycoin, which is now the fintech that I work for at the moment, I didn't know anything about tech, but like you said, you get introduced into the system. And at that time, we were a team of 3. I was the first lady, let alone the first marketer that they hired. But I was still in uni. I was in my last year of uni, or I was entering my last year of uni. So even them taking a chance on me, but I was already doing things that needed to be, that at that time were relevant, you know. And after being introduced into the Honeycoin space, and there's such zeal, and my boss was honestly even the youngest that Antler has ever invested in, to be honest. My boss was the youngest in the team, but there's so much drive, so much push. And so now I'm 3 years in, 2 years in, I started the podcast because I was like, okay, how can you start asking yourself the important questions, like, how can I make an impact myself in this space that I'm in? Okay, I'm not a technical person myself, but I do love what's happening in the tech space. The best way I could make an impact is through communications and through, I was already doing marketing, so that's why I started this platform. But I think now that itch for like, it's getting more and more, that itch for, okay, maybe I can do something more than just making an impact in one organization, maybe with this podcast or through marketing. So I do think that is what happened. I joined, and then you start kind of getting that itch. And then now I'm in that headspace where what does it take for me to feel stable or comfortable enough to make that extra leap of faith?
Interesting. I mean, I think we related on so many levels and ways of thinking, but I think one, when I joined, the tech space and seeing how everyone operates, first of all, even just the sheer age of people doing things has a, subliminal.
My boss was 19 when he hired me.
Look at that, it has a subliminal, effect of actually anyone. There's no limitations, right? No limitations. Coming from the corporate structure that I was in, I mean, our bosses were older, and by far, you come in as an intern, and then you sort of like work.
Everybody understands the hierarchy.
Exactly, everyone understands the hierarchy, and you must put your time. You must serve your time almost, and fair enough. But then some of those things are what sort of push you to, or create that itch of. I can also do it, because you can see people around you who you can relate with are doing it. Because for me, I didn't have, and that's also why I asked about your experience. I didn't really have. I was not that person who thought they were going to start a business. I mean, I studied law. There's no more comfortable way of being. Whereas you study law, and it's reliable, it's structured. You put in your time, and you understand the law, and it's a different way. So I didn't really have that. However, what I have had always, and going back to why was I in such a rush, is I've always followed my curiosity. Immediately something starts feeling old, or it's not enough, or I'm feeling some kind of ceiling, even just by observation, by looking around, my bosses, and they're all of a certain age onwards. It basically means I need to get to that age to progress, right? So just following curiosity, and that's essentially how I ended up co-founding Mosmos, because I was in a transition period from my former job. So after Turaco, I joined Koa. So actually, Turaco, COVID happened. And so, a lot of uncertainty, companies downsizing, and, for fair reasons.
Yes.
And so, I think constantly I've always had to figure it out very quickly. COVID's happened, but that doesn't mean you're going to be out of a job for 2 years now. So, what can I do next? What next? And so then my next tech job was at Koa, savings platform that was growing, again through now the professional networks I'd started establishing, I found out about Koa. They were looking to hire a marketing lead, and I was transitioning out of Turaco, and so again, I think when you're always looking, something will come. You just have to be always open. Yeah, exactly. Have that curious, sort of asking questions, meeting people, Googling what's going on out there.
And just to add a bit on that, have your 5-minute pitch ready.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you do?
Yeah, exactly. So there's also something about, when you're always looking, something will come. It's just a matter of time. And so that's how I joined Koa. And again, similar to your experience, the co-founders we were practically age mates, right?
Yeah.
And so that is, I think, actually the very first time I had the thought of, perhaps I could also do something, because even more so, everyone we were working with, I was part of the founding team. We were all colleagues, but we were also all friends and age mates, and we were all sort of in the same similar sort of life stages. And so that was really the first time I thought, perhaps I could also give it a shot. But even then, still I just joined the team.
Thought.
Just a fleeting thought, exactly. Sometimes it comes back, sometimes it doesn't. And then now from Koa is when now I started on Mosmos. Yeah.
That's when you started thinking about Mosmos.
Yeah.
Before we get into your transition into Mosmos, this is a time for me to remind our audience that Tanqueray is the premium drink of choice this festive season. We are all wearing green. You can't see my pants, but maybe the video editor is gonna add something right now to show you my outfit. We're wearing green to represent both Christmas and Tanqueray. As you can see, our drinks is also in theme. Cheers. We're in the festive season, and in the festive season, we're calling for responsible drinking. So make sure you're not drinking and driving. Drink some H2O, hydrate, eat some food. Again, if you're gonna be here at Artcaffe, you're gonna order the Gastro Collins, which is a culmination of the Tanqueray Royale tonic. So thank me later. Before we get into Mosmos, it's important for us to hydrate. So we're gonna do that, and then we continue with the discussion. Okay, now you're transitioning from Koa into sort of having this itch to become an entrepreneur yourself. What was the turning point, and how did Mosmos come to life?
Perfect. So again, always following the curiosity. I heard about Antler. And oddly, in I think about a span of 3 weeks, 2 people mentioned Antler. and I'd never heard of Antler. Yeah, exactly. I'd never heard of Antler, and I was also coming to the end of my time at Koa, and really thinking now, you know, it's been some time. If there was ever a time to try or go at, you know, entrepreneurship, this is, you know, it would be now. And, you know, had a very real conversation with myself of, if you don't do it now, then the likelihood of you know, if I now, you know, get into the job market and get another job, then I'm further, you know, pushing my, you know, my dream, or, you know, not really following through with that thought. So, you know, two people mentioned Antler. Did my research about Antler, you know, amazing program that invests in or potentially invests in ideas, exactly, which was perfect for me because, again, I didn't really have this, you know, crystallized thought of this is exactly what I want to build. This is you know, this is a problem I want to tackle. So it sounded like the best space for me to even explore, and I was very open-minded about it. If it works, fine. If it doesn't, sour, it's okay. I tried, exactly. So even going into the program, I didn't really have, you know, expectations of, you know, immediately going to the program, starting something and then it grows. I was just trying. That's
when I started seeing you in the office more often.
Exactly. So then just trying. So got into the program, and then very quickly actually met my co-founder, who'd already come to Antler with the Mosmos idea, whereas I didn't come in with that idea. I'd applied with a different idea. That's where I met him very, very, you know, quickly. I think it was two weeks into the program.
You already
exactly. Yeah, we already had rapport. We did, you know, 2 sprints together because I wanted to find out. I'd just come from, you know, developing also a savings product, and so I knew the nuances quite well. And so when he told me about Mosmos and his idea of a savings product, you know, with a twist, I was like, okay, sounds interesting. It's literally my very, very, you know, previous experience. And so I could have something to offer, but why don't we, you know, sprint together, work together for 2 weeks and see if there's something there. Do we even work well together? And essentially that was it. That's how we met. And, you know, sprinting became, okay, this works. We have a good working relationship. And then he's a techie, I'm not. And so we both bring different skills to the table. It was honestly a match made in heaven. Yeah, which you know, I understand now doesn't happen, you know, very often, and also at that speed. But that's how we met, and you know, in the professional world, you know, kicked things off. And, you know, started working together, and I had, you know, some knowledge of the solution or a different way of approaching it. And he had the, you know, the tech expertise. He was the one who was building.
We're moving a lot, and maybe our audience needs to know what
is Mosmos. True. So Mosmos is a savings platform, but what we do is that we enable customers to save for items they would like to buy. So what we call it is save now, buy later, which is also very new in terms of, you know, innovation within fintech. Save now, buy later platforms are not that many, even in Africa, far less in Kenya. And so customers are able to save for products on our platform, but these are products they would like to buy. So the alternative usually when purchasing a high cost item, and high cost here is relative. We started Mosmos, specifically for lower income customers who are not able to purchase some of these items. It could even be a mobile phone, the mobile phone that helps the customer, work or earn their day-to-day, living. And so we have a cash customer who has the full amount and able to buy, if we're talking about the mobile phone, for example, or the home appliance, or the cooking appliance like a pressure cooker. And then we have the customer who needs the item urgently, and they don't have the cash. So that is the customer for whom, buy now, pay later, where I go through a KYC process. If I'm approved, I pay a certain threshold of down payment, and then I pay for my item as I use it over time, but with additional interest. Very often, these interest rates are very high. And it's very exciting, and especially at the time that we were starting Mosmos, buy now pay later providers, or even that as a payment option, was really big. But then a couple of years later, customers are very aware now of the high interest rates and what that interest means. When exactly what that means, that it's compounding, and by the time I'm done paying for my product a year down the line, I've sometimes paid 1.5 times the price of the product.
Absolutely.
And so what Mosmos is also an alternative payment option, where for this item, if I don't need to, if it's not urgent, because sometimes I understand, a border driver has dropped their phone and they ride on Uber, so they need a phone replacement today. They don't have the luxury of time, and they don't have the full amount. That's fair. They can, of course, explore buy now, pay later options. However, there is definitely a certain segment of customers who are able to plan their purchases. So that's where Mosmos comes in. You've identified an item in one of our partner stores, for which we have quite a number, and then you open a wallet, you open a Mosmos wallet and save for this item. And the beauty is you don't pay additional interest. So essentially the item that is marked as the retail price, that's what the customer has to save up for. And very often the customer, with Mosmos, we have a lot of questions, again, because it's new in the lifespan of payment options. Where in general, yes. So Mosmos is about 2.5 years old. Okay. But save now, buy later as a concept is quite new. So then you find, the most typical question we get, and probably you're curious as well, is why don't I save in my bank account, and when I'm done?
And what's going to get there?
Oh yeah, exactly. Why don't I just save in my own bank account, and then when I'm ready, I come and buy? And we always say that's fair. However, that is representative of a very small segment of customers, who have access to, who follow through. One who follow through the discipline of, I'm actually putting money aside in my primary bank account. I don't even have a savings account. It's, my usual current account where I save. Second, it's also making the assumption that customers also approach banking or having a bank account in the same way that I also use this as a savings platform. What we found is a very large segment of our customers, for them, banks are, credit and debit platform. I am paid by my employer on this platform, and therefore I don't necessarily use it as a savings platform. And also not so much for items that I would like to buy. Perhaps, mid to longer term savings goals, I might have a savings account where I put my money separately. And so, the follow through is a very small segment of customers who have that discipline of, I have an end year goal and I will put money aside diligently, proactively, all the way from January to December, and I achieve my goal. And so what Mosmos does is, we help you crystallize that goal. I want to upgrade my kitchen. Or I even want we have customers, we have a lot of about 40% of our customers are in rural Kenya, and so they're looking to buy, farming equipment. They're looking to buy water tanks. They're looking to buy essentially, inputs for agriculture. I'm saving for fertilizer. I'm saving for, sprinkler, water sprinkling system. And so I have this goal, and so instead of it being an arbitrary goal, we say, okay, why don't you put your money at RotoTank, right, through Mosmos? And therefore, the mindset of the customer also already shifts. Rather than I'm saving towards this item worth 50K, where now, 10K, 20, it's more of a reducing balance. Because I've now put a down payment of 10K, therefore my balance is 40. And you would be surprised how that, that mindset shift of I'm paying down rather than saving up. Exactly, I'm saving up. So with every payment, I'm closer to my goal, which that's why saving is so unappealing. It's because it's such a you're looking at it from bottom going up. I have this hefty goal, exactly. It's such a huge thing. So we've crystallized it, we've helped you make the decision. You've now attached that goal to an actual physical item, and so it's that much more achievable even psychologically, and it's exciting. Now I'm not saving for 6 months and then I will decide at that point what I want to buy. You've made your purchasing decision already, and so you're paying for it over time without additional interest. Works very well, especially now during the festive sale period, because that means you have flexibility in your timeline to pay, but you also make a saving at the end of the product, right? If the sales are going up to 31st of December, you don't need to have the money today. Just make sure you complete by 31st of December. Yeah.
No, I really like the idea. And maybe my follow-up question is, what would you say your target audience primarily is?
Absolutely. So when we started, our target audience was definitely middle to lower income customers. But then we quickly found that this is also a solution that works for everyone. Everyone is saving for a purchase. Everyone is saving for a service. Everyone is saving for school fees. Everyone is saving for their first car. right? Everyone is saving for a home appliance. And so that is also what led us to, at first we only had our marketplace where you can shop and save on Mosmos, but then also now led us to establishing our B2B partnerships. One of the challenges that we first faced when building Mosmos is the lack of trust. One, we're a new financial product. Is my money safe? Exactly. Who is Mosmos? Is my money safe? And even if I trust you enough to save my money, will I get my item at the end of it, right? So I've saved for 3 months, but will I get the item that I actually wanted? So there was a lot of, trust issues, which is very natural. Exactly, very expected. And so forming our B2B partnerships therefore means that you walk into a store, they offer you this as an alternative payment method. Exactly.
I love that.
And therefore, you've immediately bypass the trust factor, because if I walk into this store, I already have a relationship with the store. There's a salesperson answering my nuanced questions. What is the savings time period? Is there interest? What if I want to withdraw? What if so some of these are very difficult to explain purely on digital platforms, and that is also the reality of fintech in Africa. We are, of course, we are making great strides in, fintech solutions and technological advancement, but we're still very much, I want to talk to someone. Yeah. If there's a problem, who do I call, right? That is similar to, that's how Safaricom, our textbook example grew, because there's an agent, right?
Money is very delicate.
It's delicate, exactly. I need to trust someone. I need to know that there's somewhere I can go. If I have a question or if I have a problem, there's someone I can call. And so building a digital-only solution for our type of product would not work.
Was not going to work.
Was not going to work. So that's why we also now established our B2B partnerships, and we've grown since. Yeah.
Which is okay. Which is still okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
you look and you adapt, and that's what entrepreneurship, or at least if you're a tech entrepreneur, that's the biggest thing, is being quick and adaptable.
For sure.
So you need, if you're seeing that this business model is not going to work, or you need to have a modification,
you need to change, exactly.
Then you have to do it as soon as possible, because it could take you a long time to grow, but seconds for you to literally go down as a business. I like that you guys were able to adapt to that as well. I think we're about to close off this episode, but I think maybe you can also just let our audience know, maybe one, where they can find Mosmos services, how can they engage with you, or just anything else you would like us to know about what you do.
Of course, yes, absolutely. So we have our website, of course, where you can save, you can shop, and you can save for this, for any of the products listed, even by our partner stores. So that is the easiest way to find out more about Mosmos. We've also partnered with various partners. We are present in Quick Marts countrywide. We are present in various, electronic stores. Electronics still are, some of our best-selling items, because of course they're aspirational. I don't necessarily want to take a loan to buy a cooker. I can just save for it. Exactly, I can just save for it and without incurring additional debt. Yes, that's so any of our partner stores which are listed on our website. And of course following Mosmos on social media. So we do have an app as well. Yes, sorry. We have an app as well. Our marketplace is also available on iOS and Android. Okay. So of course you can download the app. We've also since expanded our product to include savings goals. So we also had, again, at your point of adapting, customers asking, what if I don't know what I want to buy, but I just want to put money aside, right? You have to cater to that customer. So you can do that, you can add an interest. And so our product had a starting point, but it's also growing.
It's expanding.
Exactly, it's expanding. We're seeing what other verticals, where else parents are saving for school fees, so can they save on Mosmos?
Can you do everything?
Everything, exactly.
And that's what you have at the beginning is rarely ever going to be the product.
The product the end, exactly. It evolves. So it evolves. The market responds. Exactly.
So I like that. Make sure you check out Mosmos from their website. We'll leave any relevant links that we need to, of course, in the description or wherever you're listening from. But I think it's been absolutely phenomenal having you.
Thank you so much. This is
growth,
wonderful.
Entrepreneurship, I guess following the itch.
Exactly, following the itch.
Do you have any regrets?
Follow the curiosity.
Deciding to follow the curiosity?
Absolutely not. If anything, perhaps trying it earlier. Probably the very first time I thought, why don't I try something?
Should have tried then.
I should have tried then. even to a small scale, right? My first business was a VC-funded business, but nothing was stopping me from starting something small.
else
Exactly.
Never forget to bet on yourself.
Yeah,
is what I always
yeah,
say.
absolutely.
Especially if you work in the work environment.
Exactly.
Find something that is for you and keep betting on yourself as many times as possible.
Thank you so much. This was
All right,
fantastic.
Juliet.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for gracing our platform with your
Thank you
presence
so much.
and for once again agreeing to be the first guest on the After Hours segment in partnership with Tanqueray. Guys, as we close off this episode, your final reminder to choose Tanqueray as a drink of choice. And as you're drinking and coming to Gastro Bar to have the Gastro Collins, remember to drink responsibly, especially during this festive season. Make sure that you hydrate, eat some food, and have a good time.
Thank you. Great
My
pleasure.
name is Alice Kanjejo. I've been your host, and I shall see you in the next one. Cheers.
Cheers.